My name is Jordan Spencer. The book I chose is Heather Has Two Mommies. It's written by Lisa Newman. This story starts off talking about a little girl whose favorite number is two, and she talks about how she has two hands and 2 feet and two pets and two mommies. And the story goes on to talk about her first day of school and discusses different families and what a family may consist of. The the primary reason I feel that this book is banned is because it it deals in a very broad way about homosexuality because she has two moms, but it doesn't actually talk about it. It just states that Heather Heather, the little girl, is curious if she's the only person in class that doesn't have a dad. And this happens when she's at school and the teacher's talking about what their parents do for a living. So it says, "My daddy is a people doctor," shouts David. "My mommy is a people doctor too," Heather shouts even louder. "What does your daddy do?" David asks Heather. "I don't have a daddy," Heather says. She looks around the circle and wonders, "Am I the only one here who doesn't have a daddy?" And I think that question that they pose for her to ask is one that some kids may think, but a lot may not and may never have crossed their mind. And then that will make them think. But the great part about it is it doesn't just leave it open ended. It goes and explains through different pictures and everything that everyone's family is different. And it talks about what each student decides to draw when they draw a picture of their family. And she does realize that she's not the only one in the classroom that doesn't have a daddy. So I really like this book because um, for younger kids, it's a great way to explain that families are simply people who love each other. And I think that younger children sometimes have a hard time grasping that understanding, and this book explains it perfectly. When it comes to the statement by Patron, since library teachers cannot possibly buy or offer every book that exists to every student in their libraries, they must decide which books to include, which means some books must be excluded. I am very understanding of this statement. I think, in my opinion, why include books that are banned or challenged if you know that it may cause problems when there are so many other resources for children to explore that aren't banned or challenged. Even though this is a great book, I would rather not deal with the conflict that comes from having this book in my library. Although I do think as a teacher I would keep a book like this on hand. Maybe not in my classroom, but in my personal collection, because if I know a child is dealing with, um, for example, family issues or things like that, this would be a great book to give them or to let them borrow, to read to them. But I know that if I were to try to read this book in a classroom without parent consent, it may pose some problems. Um, the difference between censorship and selection: censorship is when the material is completely banned and taken out of libraries. Selection is simply choosing and picking and choosing which books you know the children will benefit from and, in your opinion, are great books. In choosing to exclude controversial books in the lieu of ones less controversial, parents, administrators, and school board officials, I find it to be practical because, like I said, it is our job to educate them, but it is not our job to raise them. So if parents feel that they don't want their children to read books like this, even though I may think it's a great book, it's not necessarily up to me. And there are other ways to teach about families than to read this book. So it's my job as an educator to find new ways or different ways to express what a family may be. I also think that I would, well, I already kind of went over that. I wouldn't keep it in my library, but I would keep books like this and other books, maybe like Harry Potter and a few of the other ones that were banned, maybe even in the trunk of my car or close by, so that I do have them, because I think that if parents are allowing their children to read it, then you should definitely offer it to them. But it shouldn't be just out free in the classroom library for them to read at any time without a parent's consent, if you know that it could pose some problems. With that being said, this is a great, great book, and I wish it wasn't banned, but that's not up to me. And I would definitely recommend it for children in like kindergarten grade level.